I call Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Slightly surprised to be taking call at this stage, but I'm very happy to take a call now and support my colleague from the West Coast, the Honourable Damien O'Connor, with his Dairy Industry Restructuring Amendment Bill number 2. Now, this is a reimagining of a supplementary order paper that Mr O'Connor put through when the changes that established the Trading Among Farmers system were passed through Parliament. And I think what Damien O'Connor is doing here, because he's a decent bloke from the West Coast, is he's giving the government another chance to get it right. They got it wrong the first time around, and you know, fair's fair. He's been lucky enough to have his bill drawn from the ballot, and he's giving the government another opportunity to get this right. Sadly, they don't seem to have learned from their errors, and they're still refusing to support what is a perfectly sensible and logical piece of legislation that actually, in fact, reinforces in law the position, as Shane Ardern outlined, that the Fonterra shareholders, the farmers, actually support. They have voted internally to keep a cap on the foreign shareholding, or the non-farmer shareholding of Fonterra. But oughtn't we just reinforce that and give them some security by enshrining that in the law? Because over the years, what we've seen, and various members have discussed this, is that the dairy industry in New Zealand has required a hands-on government. It hasn't been left to the market. Governments over the years, over the decades, have had to step in and create the structures that have supported the New Zealand dairy industry. And what this is in fact a step back from the cooperative model, from the hands-on supported model that governments have pursued over the decades, towards more of a market model. And that just simply hasn't worked for our dairy industry. What we see here is, of course, a classic New Zealand story where there's no point competing amongst ourselves within our tiny market. We have to cooperate in New Zealand to compete on a global scale. And really what Damien O'Connor is doing is continuing that tradition of Parliament and government and the dairy sector working together to get the structure right so that Fonterra, the dairy industry and New Zealand can effectively compete on a global scale. Mr Speaker, I think there's another really important point here, and that is that Fonterra is essentially a single purchaser of raw dairy products in New Zealand. Single purchaser model, it can work very well. It really can. And in fact, well, you know, you could apply it to a range of industries. You could apply it to keeping the cost of medicines down, for instance, with Pharmac, or indeed getting the price of electricity right, as the Labour Party has suggested, and which the National Party is so dismissive, of course. But what's really important is if you've got a single purchaser which has a lot of market power, it's got to know who it's working for. It has got to know who it's working for. So, Pharmac knows that it's working for the people of New Zealand, it's owned by the people of New Zealand, and it's working for the people of New Zealand. New Zealand Power, likewise, would be owned by the people of New Zealand, and it would be working for the people of New Zealand. Now, Fonterra is owned by the farmers, and it is there to work for the farmers. But as we dilute that, as we make it so that it's perhaps not owned, but the dividends from Fonterra start to go to the Australians, who are, you know, mostly those TAF shares have gone to the Australians, not to domestic shareholders. As we dilute that, then Fonterra has to start working for somebody else. A bit like this government, actually. It's not working for New Zealanders, it's working for somebody else. It's working for Sky City and the Warner Brothers and what have you. And Fonterra has to start working for somebody else, not the farmers. But it has a lot of power. It has a lot of power, and it's been using that power to share the dividends of its success with farmers. and we have to make sure that something like a single purchasing agency that Fonterra is absolutely certain about who it's working for. Absolutely certain about who it's working for, Mr Speaker, and that's why we in the Labour Party, who know who we're working for New Zealanders, we're working for New Zealand farmers, and that's why we support the excellent member from the West Coast, Damien O'Connor, with this superb bill, sir.
Are you calling Mr Browning?
Yes, I am.
I did not hear you. Speak louder.
Oh, it was a quiet, squeaky Mr Speaker.
Stephen Browning.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.